All right, let's dive in. The book we're breaking down today, well, it doesn't just ask questions. It really throws down a gauntlet. We're getting into Kayemb Nawej's White Poison, a work that sets out to completely flip the script on the relationship between religion, colonialism, and African history. It's a challenging text for sure, so let's just jump right into its core arguments. And boom, right from the get-go, the book just lays it all out with this quote. There's no mystery here. It frames religion not as a path to salvation, not at all, but as the #1 tool for domination. You really have to grasp this one idea because it's the foundation for literally everything else we're about to unpack. So here's how we're going to break this all down. We're going to follow the book's own logic step by step. First, we'll tackle that main idea, the white poison thesis. Then we'll get into the pretty explosive claim that black prophets were just wiped from the history books. After that, we're diving deep into the idea that the Holy Book itself was rewritten. Then we'll look at what the author says was the colonizers' true religion. And finally, we'll see where all this leads, to a pretty radical call to action for Africa.
Okay, let's get into part 1. This is that central pillar, right? The big idea. That Christianity wasn't some accident or side effect of colonization. No, the book argues it was the main weapon, and that it was used completely on purpose.
Yeah, the author calls it a pernicious stratagem. Basically, a really nasty, clever trick. This wasn't about sharing faith. The goal, as Nawej lays it out, was to disarm people spiritually, to get them to think, okay, poverty is fine, submitting to authority is good. And why? To pave the way for taking over their land, their resources, and their future.
Now think about this. According to the book, you can't just impose a new religion if the old one is still strong, right? So the first step had to be getting rid of Africa's own spiritual leaders. The author makes the case that this wasn't random. It was a systematic campaign of erasure, and he points to some really specific people as proof.
So first up, we have Osiris, and the book presents him not as some myth, but as a real historical person, Osiris the Great Black. The author actually cites ancient texts to back this up, arguing his whole mission was global. He was traveling the world to end things like cannibalism and to spread knowledge. Now, this whole story of an African prophet civilizing the world, that's the history the author claims was deliberately buried.
Next, we hear the story of Kimpa Vita. She was a prophetess in the Congo, and she wasn't quiet about it. She directly challenged the colonial church. Her movement grew, and it was seen as so dangerous that, according to the book, she was burnt alive at the stake. And not just her, but her son and many of her followers too. The author uses this as a brutal, stark example of the kind of violence that was used to stamp out any local native spirituality.
And this didn't just happen in the distant past. The book brings us into the 20th century with Simon Kimbangu. His mission was clear, the liberation of the Congo people and the black race. And because his message was a direct threat to the whole colonial system, the author says he was thrown in jail, condemned, and in the end, tortured to death, all for resisting what the book calls the religion of the colonizer.
Okay, so if you thought that was intense, this next part is maybe the most audacious claim in the entire book. The argument is that the Bible itself was rewritten, fundamentally changed, to serve the colonial agenda. And it all starts with the very definition of God.
The whole thing really hinges on one single word, Elohim. Now, the author makes a big point about this. This Hebrew word shows up over 2,300 times in the original Torah, and here's the kicker. It's a plural noun. So the argument is, it doesn't mean one single God. It actually means people who came from the sky, or creators, plural. We're talking multiple physical beings, essentially cosmic creators.
And this slide really nails the huge theological flip the book is proposing. You've got Western monotheism on one side, this belief in one single, all-powerful God, which the author flat out calls a lie and an entrapment. And on the other side, you have what the book claims was the original religion of Africa, polytheism, a belief in many physical, humanized gods who came from the sky. And the most critical point the author makes is this: one was invented specifically to wipe out the other. So that leads to a pretty big question, right? If Christianity was just the tool, what was the colonizers' real religion? What did they actually worship? Well, according to this book, the answer is brutally simple: profit, slavery, and exploitation. And the church was right there to give it all a stamp of moral approval. And to drive this point about profit home, just look at this number: 2,000%. The book cites historical records showing that a slave bought for £4 in Africa could be sold for £80 in Brazil. I mean, that is an insane profit margin. The author's point is that this wasn't just another business. It was the single most profitable venture in the history of humanity. And that was the real engine driving colonization. So how do you keep a system like that going? Well, the book lays out a very specific strategy, a set of teachings that were drilled into Africans to make sure they stayed submissive. You can see some of them here, things like twisting scripture, blessed are the poor, to make people actually love poverty, or setting up schools that taught people to just believe, not to think critically. And if all that failed, the author says the final argument was always violence. Convert blacks by using the whip.
And if you're looking for the smoking gun, the book points directly to this, a papal bull from Pope Nicholas V back in 1455. The author presents this as Exhibit A. It's an official decree from the very top of the church, giving the green light, a free and full power to invade, capture, and I'm quoting here, reduce their persons to perpetual slavery. It's pretty damning stuff. Okay, so after laying out this incredibly intense critique, the book doesn't just leave you there. It makes a hard pivot to a direct call to action. It proposes a 4-step plan for what it calls the complete decolonization of Africa. We're talking mind, body, and soul.
And this plan has 4 very clear steps. First, apostatize. That means formally and publicly renouncing the Christian religion. Step 2, reconnect. Go back and rediscover the ancestral polytheistic traditions. Third, embrace science. The author sees technology as the real key to progress and freedom. And finally, step 4, redraw borders, to get rid of the artificial states created by colonizers and bring back Africa's natural boundaries.
And this last statement, man, it really brings home the book's final and completely uncompromising point. In the author's view, you can't have it both ways. There's no middle ground. To be a Black Christian is, in this framework, a deep betrayal. It's siding with the very institution the book accuses of destroying your ancestors, erasing your prophets, and green-lighting your enslavement. So in the end, the book leaves us with this massive, profound question. This isn't just a history lesson. It's a call to tear down and completely rebuild identity from the ground up. It's challenging you to question the very foundation of your history, your faith, your whole view of the world. And after digging into all these arguments, you're just left thinking, what does that even mean? What does a total decolonization of the mind truly entail?